Welcome back everyone to Pete's Investing. In this special edition we'll be covering two topics. Number one, a quick overview of the charts of some companies which produce vaccines and see if there's any correlation between those companies and what the media, what we hear about in the media and how that may affect the share price movement. Secondly, from those pharmaceutical sector, we look at which company may be best to invest in and trade using our strategy. We analyse some basic fundamentals to narrow down our options to select the company. Don't forget, as always, remember to review Pete's Investing channel playlists. That's where we look at the weekly review of the indices across the world, also some blue chip shares we review every week, and also our strategy videos which help explain some of the simple trading strategy, the average down process, money management ideas, etc. As always, click on the subscribe button and like this video to support the channel. And if you want me to review any index or share or commodity in the future, please put it in the comments and I'll try and cover it as best I can. Let's get started. So first I want to go back to the companies we selected, and this was a snapshot from a screen print off the Forbes website, and that's the website up there, and I'll put that in the link below. So basically looking at Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, GlaxoSmithKline, CanSino, Sinovac, Novavax, and that's pretty much it. We've also included CSL from Australia in this list. So what we're going to do is just look at the charts and see how they're performing relative to the news we're hearing. First one is Johnson & Johnson. Now what I'm doing here, I'm not showing you the 15-minute charts, which is what we usually follow in our strategy, but rather I'm just showing you the overall performance on a daily basis. So here you can see, and I'm going back to the start of 2020, you can see here the start of the pandemic or the COVID crisis. The share prices have generally taken a dump early on up until about March, April, before they started to recover, if at all. So Johnson & Johnson, being a US company, and the country is the source of where the vaccine is made at. So Johnson & Johnson has had a steady rise over 2020 and also in 2021. So I'm not going to go into detail in the actual news reporting behind it, other than to show you the chart and how that's reflective of the share price. Pfizer, likewise, took a bit of a hit during the COVID crisis. Made a recovery, then it's been going pretty much sideways ever since. It's made some ups and downs, and it's basically coming back down to our support levels here over the 18-month period. Moderna, this looks a lot more convincing as far as the chart goes. It's had pretty steady rises, no real impact during the COVID crisis, as you can see. Had a bit of a spike up here, then an adjustment back here. And again, I'd ask you to go and reference the news articles regarding each of these companies to understand better what, if any, news has impacted these. AstraZeneca, this took a slight blimp in the progress of its share price early on, but then it took some nice rises, and now it's been going steadily declining in the late last year, and early this year it's making some comeback. GlaxoSmithKline, again, coming from the UK and France, took a hit during COVID, bit of a recovery, then it's been going downwards and it's gone past the COVID point back here a year later. CanSino, the Chinese produced vaccine, I was going to say virus, that didn't really take much of a hit, didn't take a hit at all actually during the COVID outbreak. Went upwards and then it went sideways for a while, then it took a nice big rise early on, or late 2020 and early on in 2021. It's been consolidating now in the last 2 or 3 months in this little consolidation phase. Novavax, US vaccine, no impact during COVID, very similar to the Chinese vaccine. It's been going sideways most of 2020 and then took a nice rise there. Now it's been recovered back or withdrawn back into its to the support level here. CSL Australia, that took a hit during the COVID outbreak, made a recovery, and now it's been going and accumulating sideways. And again, it's been going below, down to our COVID levels a year later. CureVac in Germany. Again, we haven't got much history on this one, other than to say it's been going sideways pretty much in the last few months from last quarter in 2020. So not much really to report there. So I just wanted to show you those quickly in terms of chart patterns and how they're performing and what, if any, news has impacted those. And it doesn't seem to have much of an impact, to be honest, from the news out we've been receiving. For example, Pfizer has been touted as being a superior vaccine to AstraZeneca. But if you look at AstraZeneca and Pfizer, they've been performing very similarly in terms of share prices. What I want to do now is just go to the summary on a table in terms of those companies and where they're listed on which exchange and what dividend yields they're attracting, if any, when the dividend dates were, and what profitability was realised based on the 15-minute chart. Again, we were showing the one-day chart, just more of a historical view, but in terms of the 15-minute chart, what benefit, if at all, they returned. First off, I just want to highlight the dividend yields for Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, GlaxoSmithKline, and to some degree CSL Australia. All the others are not paying dividends. Remember, our strategy relies on, as plan B, or in terms of income, we rely on dividends if the share price doesn't give us any capital gains. So if we were to trade any of these, we'd be trading probably one of if you're going to trade any of these pharmaceutical sector, we'd be trading one of those that are attracting some dividends. Likewise, the profitability on the buy and sell strategy versus the buy and hold. You can see there the return. So if we were to trade in the CSL, for example, $160 return over the period in a 15-minute chart time frame versus buy and hold, it's gone down below our break even. Pfizer's attracted 522. mRNA, which just doesn't attract a dividend, let's forget that for the moment. And Johnson & Johnson, $408. You can see that AstraZeneca hasn't attracted any benefit in terms of capital gains. So I just want to just show you that as in summary. I can let you pause that and digest that, as well as the charts in the previous slides, just to help you understand how they're performing. Next, I want to show you in terms of how we would go about selecting one of the companies if we were to select one or more of these pharmaceutical companies. So basically, what I'm doing here is I'm downloading data from Yahoo Finance, and this is just giving us some basic fundamental data in terms of trailing PE, total debt to equity, return on equity, the current ratio MRQ, PEG ratio, and some dividend yields, 5-year average dividend yield, etc. And using that data, I'm giving it some sort of level of ranking, if you like, against the other companies. So, for example, looking at, again, down here, the higher the number, the better. So here, for example, looking at return on equity. Here we're saying the return on equity compares that value, and we're saying anything greater than 17% will be compared against the other pharmaceutical companies. Hence, Johnson & Johnson scored the best ranking of return on equity. Next, you probably look at, in terms of in Johnson & Johnson, you look at price book MRQ. Again, that's looking at anything less than 1 would be ideal, but again, Johnson & Johnson has got 6.7, not quite as good as Pfizer, but better than the rest of them. So again, just ranking those KPIs against the other companies. For Johnson & Johnson, you do the same thing for each company like that. So that in Pfizer, that scored 8. So that'll be looking at the other companies in comparison. So that was the best value overall in terms of MRQ and so on. So then looking at the total value, that just simply sums all those values. We're saying ranking, which company scored the highest value in terms of overall ranking. And Johnson & Johnson scored the highest, followed by Pfizer, followed by GlaxoSmithKline. Now, we're not suggesting Johnson & Johnson is going to outperform in terms of trading. It's not going to outperform the other companies. We're simply just trying to eliminate or narrow down our options. So that just gives you a summary of how I use this tool to pick one or two of these companies from each sector. So here I'm looking at pharmaceuticals. I'd probably pick either Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and maybe GlaxoSmithKline. Not to say, for example, any other company won't be performing well on the share market as a price chart, but we're just trying to eliminate and using probability in terms of based on the fundamentals of the data here. Remember, we're always comparing companies from the same sector. We don't compare pharmaceutical, for example, against mining companies or anything else. It's always compare like for like from the same sector. And one of our strategies is to choose companies which pay reasonable dividends. And again, if you look at this chart, we want to make sure we're getting some reasonable dividend in the absence of any capital gains. So here we look at Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and GlaxoSmithKline, and possibly CSL. And lastly, we look at, depending on the type of charting tool you have, we want to make sure we're looking at charting data that has a reasonable history of charting data. So, for example, AstraZeneca would be a good example. That would be they're all mostly got in this charting package. Most have got reasonable charting history. The only one I would sort of highlight that hasn't got that level of history is CureVac, for example. There was no history, not enough history on that to make any to give us confidence in entering the market on this one and trading it if you were to choose a company that did that. Also, a chart which I haven't shown was Sinovac. And again, that hasn't got any data or chart behind it, so I couldn't show you that one. So anyway, that was the result of a quick look into the pharmaceutical sector. Hope that helped, and happy trading. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and we'll speak to you in future videos. Thank you.